Yeah, it's definitely, it's definitely got that wonderful Williams agility. Welcome to Oxfordshire and the home of Williams tenders, probably the most recognisable tender brand in the world. And we've got a great opportunity today because we're going to have a peek behind the curtain inside the factory of what it takes to build these boats. And then at the end of the day, we're going to go on their test lake just down the road and drive one. So come with us for a behind the scenes look at what I think is by volume the biggest boat builder in the UK. I mean, they churn out 1,200 boats a year, so let's just say they're building a hell of a lot of boats. Let's get going. I'm Jack Haines, welcome to YachtBuyer. Let's start at the beginning then, and the composites area. So this is where all of the moulding is done for the hull, the deck, and the other big GRP structures like the helm station. Now, nearly every model in the range is moulded in here. The smallest, the mini jet, comes pre-packaged from a subcontractor in China, but everything else is done in here. And what's remarkable is how much of it is done by hand. They're still rolling gel coat in some cases. A lot of that is moving towards spray, especially for the coloured hulls, coloured gels, but a lot of it is still done by hand. It's not that roboticized, apart from the CNC machine, which cuts the cores for the structure. So they're cored structures. They use resin infusion, as a lot of the big boat manufacturers are doing these days. But the difference with Williams is they're not using plastic bags. You can see over there, they've got silicone bags over the mold, and then the resin is drawn through. It's a very accurate process. It creates a very light structure as well. And the thing about the silicone is it's reusable. You don't chuck the bag away at the end. So they've used that 1,000 times, or for about 4 years on a 345 model. So it's a much more effective process. Then once the boats have been moulded, they move through to the engineering fit out. So let's head over there. So between composites moulding and the engineering fit out, you have the parts warehouse, a really important part of the production process. This is where everything's kept. The engines, the smaller components, throttle bodies, everything that goes into building these boats is stacked up on these shelves here. There's about 6 million quid's worth of stock just in this area here, and it's perfectly positioned between where the hulls and the decks are moulded, and then here into engineering, which is the next part of the build process. Here then, the deck and the hull arrive, they're separated, so you have a bare hull, and this is the engineering stage. As you can see, the BRP Rotax engine has gone in, and these are used across the range, and it's a Bombardier product. You'll see these in ATVs, jet skis, snowmobiles, that sort of thing. It's exactly the same engine, but it's got the Williams jet design on it. That's also added at this stage. You can see the wiring, the plumbing, it's all done while you've got the best access possible to this area. And then after that stage, you're getting to the point where you're fitting the hull to the deck. But this boat here is at quite a good stage to show you the sort of midpoint. So you've got some of the componentry going on. We've got the railings here. You've got the slot for the steaming light, the towing eye. You can see the ladder is on here. This is the jet drive that I mentioned earlier. That's what that looks like without the bucket on it. We'll see the bucket later on. You've got some teak on here. Locker lids have gone on. And actually what you can see here really easily is how the tubes are fixed. So they don't bond the tubes on like some manufacturers do. The tubes have got a little edge on them, and that slips into this channel here, and they just drag them back down through the channel and fix them both ends of the stern and at the bow. So if you need to replace them, if they're damaged or you want to change them, change colour, fancy a refresh, very easy to do that because they're not bonded on to the hull. In the next stage down here, you can see the process happening where the deck and the hull are bonded together. There's no sort of bolting or anything like that, no physical bond between the deck and the hull. They use a really strong bonding agent called Christima. Apparently it sets like concrete. You can see this boat's had it done. This guy over here bonds every single boat. He's the expert. You can see him piping it on, and then they press these two together, and it's held with these clamps until there's a really secure connection between the hull and the deck. And then after that stage, we're moving towards the end of the build process, the final fit-out stages, which Williams calls end of line, and it's just through that archway. Here we are at end of line, and here you can see a little gaggle of mini jets. These actually are the only boats that aren't built to this stage in-house. These come from a subcontractor in China with the tubes on, with the decks, as you can see them here. You haven't got quite as much customization with those boats because of that, but they've got to churn them out at a serious rate, of course. And then over here, this is a 285 TurboJet, the smallest one in the TurboJet range, and I think it gives you a really good impression of just the tiny, tiny footprint of these things. All of this packaging, getting the engine in there, the fuel tank, all the engineering goes into that tiny GRP footprint, which looks so small without the tubes on. Obviously the tubes are going to be added at a later date. Talking of the tubes, that's another component that comes in from China or Korea. They're Hyperlon. They don't do those in-house. They come in in time to be fitted to the boat here in the factory. Everything else though, pretty much done in-house. And as we move through, you can see these boats, various different models in various different states of finish. So these guys here obviously are fixing the ski pole to this boat here. This is where the tubes are added, any more of the bright work, the stainless, the tubes obviously go on here, the electronics are added. It all happens here. And then these guys in this section at end of line also test every single boat. So it goes to the lake, which we're going to see later on. They test every single one and sign it off before it goes off to the customer. Here on the other side of this shed, this boat's at quite an interesting stage because I think it's just come through from engineering. You can see the deck is on, you've got the engine in there, but it's got its box of parts over there. We saw over in the parts warehouse earlier on that every single boat is assigned with a matching serial number, its box of parts. So the guys will come along, add all those bits and then add the tubes, and then you're pretty much at the finished stage before it goes off to its final commissioning. And here you get a really good idea of the level of customization, which is such a big part of what Williams does. You can see you've got the silver paint or gel, they can do either, but you have a huge selection, pretty much anything goes. And a lot of people like to match the color of the tender, the upholstery, the detailing, the gel to the mothership, and that's exactly what Williams allows you to do. Over here you've got a 345. The 345 is the most popular model in the range. It takes them about 6 days to build one of those. In many ways, it's the ability to customize on really quite small boats that does set Williams apart. And then the final stage of this process before they go off to the customer is commissioning, which goes on just in this shed here. Now, as I said, every single boat is tested on the lake, but before that happens, they're dumped in this tank here for commissioning here at the facility. They're run up to full speed in gear, which must be quite a sight with them just held in place with these ratchet straps here. But that's just to check that everything is running as it should be, there's no leaks, everything is functioning before the boat goes out of the factory. And then you have this gallery here of the boats that are literally about to go out the door to their customers. They've got the lighting up here so they can get some nice photographs of them before they go, but you've got a nice selection here, 345, 325, a 435, and I talked about the customization. Well, I think you can guess what the mothership of this one is, but again, you've got that lovely bespoke Pershing stitching, just shows the lengths you can go to when it comes to really making your mark on your Williams. So that's what goes into building a Williams tender then. I think we should go and find out what they're like to drive. Welcome to the famous Williams test lake. This is where they test their boats and commission them, and this is where the press get to come and have a play with them as well. And today they've got us a 505. This is actually in the SOLAS fit out, so safety of lives at sea. On passenger vessels over 500 gross tons, you need to have one of these on board. They have to meet very strict regulations. So for example, this moulding at the back here has got a self-righting mechanism in it. The boats are really thoroughly tested. They're banged against walls, they're dropped from a 3-meter height. Williams have got a great video of them doing it, which we'll try and cut in if we can find it. But yeah, this is a sort of whole different project for them, focusing on that SOLAS safety sector. But what we're going to play around with and focus on is this. This is the Evo 70. It's the reborn flagship of the range. It's new for 2023, and it is the top of the tree of the Williams model lineup. And if you think about where Williams have come from, you know, they've built 10,000 tenders, been building them for 19 years, and they started in a shed with a tiny little jet ski tender. This really is quite the genesis, and it's, you know, it is a tender for 40+ meter boats, but you know, this is a £170,000 boat. It's a day boat. It's a proper boat. So there's loads to enjoy. Interesting to see if it's still got that Williams feels to it. And of course, after we tour it, we're going to go out on that lake and drive it. So it's got a 13-person carrying capacity, which is pretty amazing for a boat of about seven meters, and you can just see how much seating they've worked into every area really. And the other key consideration is movement of guests on and off the boat, whether that's from the mothership or the quayside, and then movement once you're on board. You've got 13 people on board, you still want them to be able to move around easily. So from here, the easiest place for me to step on, you see you've got this synthetic teak tread here, very easy, and then you've got this slot-in pole, and this can be moved around the boat. So there's a mounting at the bow, there's one on both sides here, and there's a mounting at the stern as well. So depending on where people are embarking or disembarking from, you can move this around. It slots in and out really, really easily. You've got some storage forward here. This is the anchor locker under here. You've also got some slot-ins for carbon fibre poles, and there's a canopy that connects to the top of the T-top, so you can shade this area out. Obviously you've got some nice comfortable seating here, but this also flips up to provide really easily accessed storage. I love the way that that just pops up on a gas ram. It's all lined out. You've got storage there for the steaming light, which is also quite important because it's part of the mechanism that allows you to fold the hardtop. We'll have a look at that in the moment. But you know, the Williams quality, it's what they're renowned for, and it really stands out on this boat, the flagship, where they can really flex their guns. You've got storage like that on both sides. This boat's actually got an uprated sound system. It's a fusion sound system. You've got some speakers down here, and then underneath here we've also got the all-important fridge. You know, this will mostly be used by the crew really for ferrying people around, but you know, if the owner wants to go out on the boat, gonna have somewhere to store the cold drinks. So you've got a cooler there, you've got another cooler amidships, which we'll have a look at, but again, it's all really nicely integrated. A couple of catches to keep it in place, and then these cushions just pop her on. Really easy walk around deck layout. It's symmetrical, so you can easily walk down both sides. Obviously you can pass through the helm station as well, so you know, ease of movement is a really important priority for Williams when the boat is at full capacity. The helm station we'll talk about in more detail when we get out to sea. Got this double bench here. Underneath here, incidentally, is engine access. So those catches pop off and that springs up, and then I love that it's illuminated. You've got access to the 4-cylinder Yanmar engine in there. That's all very easy to see the day-to-day stuff. You've got your raw water filter there, fuel filter. You can get to, you know, the daily service stuff pretty easily. Any more involved work, then obviously it can come out, but yeah, day-to-day, that's really simple. And you see this hatch here as well, and this lifting point here. That's so that you can, with the engine hatch down, pop that down, lift this up, out of the way. You then have this screw hatch here. You can lift this off, it says, and then the crew, using a single strap, can lift, obviously with the hardtop folded down, can lift this either onto the deck of the mothership or winch it into the tender garage, and that can all be done from a single point. That's another important consideration when they're designing the boat, the centre of gravity, not only for the way it runs on the water, but for the way it hangs off a crane as well. The considerations for building a tender are quite different to a normal day boat. It's really fascinating, and Williams, well, they are the experts. Put that the wrong way around. Lovely. Hardtop. Obviously, this has got to go into tender garage in some instances. It's carbon fibre, the roof is, that's 20 kilograms. You've got aluminium uprights here. And then there's a very smart mechanism actually where this clips out, and then this bit folds down like this, and then you've got gas rams inside here. These clip out, and then it folds down and it sits with the ski pole in place, just sits flush here. So it's got a really, really low air draft. Obviously the aerial folds down, the windscreen also folds down, and you can actually have a detachable wheel too to make it even more low profile. Every millimetre counts when they're trying to fit these inside the mothership. So much work goes into making this as low profile as possible. Under here, this is, as I mentioned earlier, that sort of cooler. It's not actually got a fridge element in it, but it's drained, so you can chuck ice in there, chuck drinks in there. It's all lined out, so you can put wet kit in there, things like that. And then seating is key, and Williams have been fitting these for donkey's years, but these straps that every seat has got, so no matter where you're sitting, you can really hold yourself nice and secure. These are the good seats here as well, because you can tuck yourself into the corner. You've got built-in grab rails in the Hyperlon tubes, a couple more speakers down here, deck drains as well, so it can all drain out. And then you have your bathing platform, of course, with a ladder in the back. So if you want to go out and take this boat to the beach, you can anchor it, of course, swim off it. Then you can really extend the adventure by using this alongside the mothership. So that's a lot of information about what it's like on board. Let's get it out there, start it up, and see what it's like to drive. So just to show you the start procedure on a jet drive boat, I mean, this is a Yanmar engine, so that's all really pretty familiar. You've got a key down here. There you go, she's up and running. And then obviously you've got your keel cord, as you'd have on any sort of boat of this size. Pop that on. And then you can see there's already a little bit of movement. The boat's in neutral. We've always got a little bit of water flowing. So what they've got down here is these plus and minus buttons where you can just add and reduce a little bit of bucket. So if we can take the line off, please. So I'm in neutral now, but you can use these buttons just to give it a little bit of reverse. So I'm not even using the throttle at the moment, that's just using these buttons down here. But that's not really for manoeuvring. To manoeuvre, it's a normal throttle, so you release and then you pull down and you're in reverse. And you're back into neutral. And really these buttons down here are to give you sort of 10% increments of drive, just to hold the boat steady if there's a bit of tide flowing. You know, we're on a lake here, so it's very still. When I used to drive older Williams, then there was quite a lot of movement, even in neutral. You always felt like you were slightly moving forward a bit, and that could be a little bit unsettling. It isn't as bad on this. This is, you know, a very modern version of the drive system, and it feels quite different. But interesting that they've brought in these buttons down here just to give you really tiny incremental changes to keep the boat still. And of course, the way the jet works, it's just sucking in water and blowing it out the back of the boat. When you want to reverse, so neutral into reverse, the bucket comes down and literally forces the flow back under the boat, and that's what sends the boat into reverse. So back into neutral. Got hydraulic steering on this one. Smaller boats are fly-by-wire. They have hydraulic steering here on the largest model. This is the flagship, 7 metre. And as I said, 250 horsepower, 4-cylinder Yanmar diesel engine joined to that Williams designed pump jet drive. So let's see. I mean, this is so different to the last Williams I drove was the entry-level mini jet. You know, without wanting to diminish what the rest of the range feels like, this is a proper boat. You know, I'm standing up to drive a Williams. This is a first for me. Usually you're sitting in the jockey position or something, you're sitting with your knees quite high. You know, I've got a big tubes out in front of me, full walk around decks, proper windscreen, a bolster seat that you can obviously sit down to get a bit more protection. Yeah, it's a proper boat, but has it still got that Williams edge when it comes to the driving experience? Right then, here we go on the famous lake. Obviously it's very calm. And it's, you know, it's a bit noisy, but then you've got a big 4-cylinder diesel engine right underneath your bottom. It still has that punch, that really instantaneous jet drive wallop that I'm so used to from the smaller Williams, but it's just how sophisticated this thing feels. It feels so big and comfortable and easy. Yeah, there's that sort of familiar jet drive, sort of slight side-to-side motion. The hydraulic steering does give you a lot of security. You know, it doesn't wander too much. Smaller jet drive boats can wander from side to side a little bit, but actually on the straight and narrow, this feels really nice and secure. It's got a slightly deeper V in the hull. It's 22 degrees in the dead rise. The smaller boats are about 20 degrees. But it really does feel nice and planted and sophisticated. We're doing 25 knots here, that's the cruising speed. Feels really natural, there's no trim tabs. You can't trim the jet. You know, you don't really have to think about that stuff, you just set the speed. And, well, the top speed should be 40 miles an hour, so even on this little lake, let's see what we get. Here we go then, full out, flat out. There it is, 40 miles an hour, 35 knots. Just like that, bit of weight coming, crossing our own wake. It's a bit bouncy for poor Ed who's holding the camera, but... okay, so performance is good. The handling is a big part of what Williams is about, so let's see what it can do. Yeah, it's definitely it's definitely got that wonderful Williams agility. What's really nice is you have to add power to keep the turn nice and hard. So you get this lovely sort of power slide feel. As you turn in and you feed it a bit of power, the stern just steps out a little bit and it slides around in the most delicious way. It's really, really rewarding. It's so much fun. I did wonder whether being this big, the driving experience would be slightly diluted. You'd lose that go-kart-like agility that Williams is known for, but okay, it's not quite like the blue bottle reactions of a mini jet, but it's still an awful lot of fun to throw around. And they wanted to maintain that short lock, so you're not having to dial in loads of lock to make this thing turn. You still have pretty much instantaneous response from just outside centre. That response to the movement is really, really great. It's so agile. And the driving environment is lovely. It's really lovely. It's very simple, this dash arrangement, but with my twin MFDs, I've got all the information I need. You've got a VHF, you've got some storage, plenty of protection from this windscreen. As I said, you can stand up and bolster, but yeah, you don't really feel like you need to. This is a great driving position when it's calm. You probably want to stand up when it's a bit rougher. And on that note, I really like this quite tall, slender throttle, but even here on the lake, I've found that I'm using it at the bottom. I think they could do with a shorter throttle arm, just to give you a little bit more fine control when it's a bit choppier. I'd also quite like to see this bolster split, so someone can stand up and someone can sit down. At the moment, if someone's sitting down, the other person has to be sitting down and vice versa. But you know, from what you can garner on the limitations of the test lake, it's a really enjoyable boat to drive. So there you have it, behind the scenes of Williams tenders, a nice look around the factory and a spin out on the lake with us. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please give it a like. And if you want to subscribe, click up here. And if you want more of our videos, then you can click up here. Thanks for watching.